Hey everyone, so today we will be learning about naming covalent molecular compounds. From our previous video, I've discussed how to name ionic compounds. And now we're naming covalent or molecular compounds. So we already know that molecular compounds are made when two or more elements share, the term is share, electrons in a covalent bond to connect the elements. So when we say covalent or molecular compounds, it occurs between nonmetals plus nonmetals or of the same elements. So we have these four simple rules. We have number one is to remove the ending of this second element and add "ide". It means to remove the suffix of the second element to add IDE, just like when we're naming the ionic compounds. And rule number two is to dictate the number of a given element in the compound using the prefixes. So we know the prefixes. We know the prefixes already. We have mono, 1, di, 2, tri, 3, tetra, 4, penta, 5, hexa, 6, hepta, 7, octa, 8, nona, 9, deca, 10. So a simpler example would be CO2. We call this carbon dioxide. We do not call this carbon monoxide, monocarbon dioxide, since rule number 3 states that if there's only one of the first element, you can drop the prefix. So we call this carbon dioxide since there's only one element, carbon. We leave it as it is. So if we have H2O, we have dihydrogen, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So it's dihydrogen oxide. So another example for rule number 3 that states that if there's only one of the first element, you can drop the prefix. We have CO, which is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide. We do not call this monocarbon monoxide. It's just carbon monoxide. So rule number 4 states that if there are two vowels in a row that sounds the same, once the prefix is added, the extra vowel on the end of the prefix is removed. So the same example, we have carbon monoxide, carbon monoxide. We do not use carbon monoxide. Since these are two vowels in a row, rule number 4 states that we remove the extra vowel on the end of the prefix. So I hope that's clear, and then let's proceed to the examples. So what if we have P4S5? We call this as tetraphosphorus pentasulfide. Another is when we have O2. We simply call this as oxygen. So why is it not dioxide or dioxygen? We do not call this dioxide. It's simply oxygen. So I'm just gonna briefly discuss the difference between oxygen O versus oxygen O2. So this first one, oxygen O, is simply an oxygen atom. And oxygen 2 is a pure element or a molecule compound. It's a compound since it has more than one. This oxygen O2 consists of two atoms bound together, forming a molecule also called as oxygen. So this is a molecule that is called oxygen. It's fixed. Okay? When we have O2, we call this oxygen directly. It is fixed since oxygen is usually found as a diatomic gas. We do not the air we breathe, the oxygen we breathe is in the form of O2. Oxygen is usually found as a diatomic gas. Therefore, we write it as O2. So this compound or molecule is simply called an oxygen. So example number 3 would be Cl3F. Simply call this as trichlorine monofluoride. And for the fourth example, we have Cl2O7. This is dichlorine heptaoxide. And then if we have SF4, we call this as sulfur tetrafluoride. So when you look at these examples, we can notice that these elements or these compounds are composed of non-metal elements. These are non-metals. Phosphorus and sulfur are non-metals, and O2 is of the same element. Okay, so these are molecular compounds.